I think college really is a great trainer how to be a worker.
Yep.
And I never wanted to be a worker. I was kind of sick of that. And I knew that if I got into that system, I'm a pretty loyal guy. So if I got into a job at 23, I would have a hard time quitting or trying to find something I really wanted. And then you add in a wife and kids. And then I could see how 10, 15, 20 years go by without you ever doing anything that you actually are passionate about.
You're listening to the Steady Trade Podcast, a podcast that inspires traders to make meaningful strides and pursue their passions. Your hosts are Tim Bohen, the lead trainer at StocksToTrade Pro, Kim Ann Curtin, the Wall Street coach, and Steven Johnson, the up-and-coming trader who's always willing to learn. Together, we'll sit down with experts to talk about their process, the lessons they've learned, and discuss how all traders can level up their trading careers.
Welcome back to the Steady Trade Podcast. Today we've got another young trader, a young man. Again, I keep doing this on these podcasts. Where the ladies at? In the words of Beyonce. But anyway, another young trader, another young man with a great work ethic, went into trading because he followed the similar path that I did. He went to college just because he didn't know what else to do, and then truly found his passion in trading. Still a young guy, early 20s. I think 23, 24. He mentions it in the podcast. I might say it wrong, but early 20s, and is really pursuing his dream. He's in the office with Jack Kellogg. If you haven't listened to the episode with Jack, I reference it all the time. One of my favorites. Look, go in the archive, check out the episode with Jack Kellogg, another young guy, and him and Dom actually work together. So today we've got Dom, aka Michael G. Scott, on Profitly. You can check out his trade results. Pretty wild. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in trading profits, and he's only a couple years in. And he dropped some good knowledge. And I don't, spoiler alert, hit the little skip ahead if you don't want a spoiler. But a lot of stuff we talk about is less is more, focusing on minimal amount of setups, so many recurring themes on this podcast. But I tell you, the recurring themes, because they're important themes. They're important things that you should be focusing on. So another great episode with another great young trader. I bring you Dom, Michael G. Scott. So as I mentioned in the introduction, we've got Dom here, Michael G. Scott on Profitly, which everyone jokes about. But, I know who that is. I know the show, but I have to admit, this as old as I am, I've never seen an entire episode of The Office. I know that is probably blasphemy to many of you listeners out there, but I've got too many hobbies. But anyway, Michael G. Scott on Profitly. Dom is his real name. And, another one of these, I call these episodes Trader Spotlight or whatever you want to call them. But I love, if you're a longtime listener of the podcast, I love seeing young people getting after it. That is something that's inspirational to me. We actually just got back from the Trader and Investor Summit, and I kind of went on a rant there. Even though I'm practically 50, it drives me nuts when people complain about the youth of today, because there's guys like Dom out there. There's guys like Jack. If you've listened to the episode with Jack Kellogg, we talked a lot about that work ethic and that getting after it. So I'd kind of like to go over that again today with Dom. So welcome to the podcast, Dom.
Thanks for having me.
So let's just, what I like to do with these episodes is let's start at the beginning, or I should say slightly before the beginning. What were you doing before you started, looking for trading, and maybe what was the catalyst? It is the simple fact. At some point, I'm guessing you Googled how to make money in stocks or how to trade stocks. So what was going on before you Googled that, and what kind of brought you to Google that?
Well, I was in school. I was in college here in Michigan in my senior year. I always knew that I didn't want to use my degree. I didn't want to have a normal 9-to-5 job. But at that point, I really had no other options. I'd gone through the whole school system and hadn't really started any businesses or come up with any other ways to make money besides the traditional route. So it was my senior year. I was skipping a lot of classes, not really taking it seriously, knowing that it was inevitable that I was going to have to get that 9-to-5 job eventually. So trying to have some fun and enjoy the last of school before entering the real world. And I was on YouTube doing watching a presentation for a class I'd skipped, and writing a paper on that. And then,
so what was your, just for the listener, what was your major? What were you studying?
Business finance.
Okay. So,
yep. And the class was like income taxation or something about annuities. And once I finished that little video, there was a recommended tab on the right side, and it was a video of Tim Sykes on Steve Harvey, millionaire penny stock trader Tim Sykes. So that was the first time I had ever seen it. I then went on just started searching penny stocks, how to make money doing it, who was the teachers, the educational stuff for it, reading books, and eventually decided that this was going to be the thing that was going to get me out of that 9-to-5 job. And here we are now. But
now I want to kind of get a little bit of a background on that. So, you say you wanted to escape the 9-to-5, but did you ever even have a job, or did you, did you go through it, or did you just know you wanted nothing to do with it?
Well, I had been working since I was like 15 or 16. Since I wasn't allowed to have a car when I turned 16 unless I had a job. So that work ethic kind of got instilled in me right away. I was a dishwasher at a pizza place, cutting pizzas. It was a buffet, so I was serving on the buffet. And then in college, in the summers, I worked landscaping, worked my way up to foreman, working 50, 60 hours a week. In the grueling hot summers here in Michigan, getting dirty, spreading mulch, planting. And through all that, I kind of just realized I didn't want to trade time for money anymore.
Okay.
I didn't like the idea because I was making good money doing landscaping, but the physical distress and then just mentally drain on you 6 days a week, not have any free time to live your life or do anything. I just didn't like the whole idea of that. I'm also like to be a little different than everyone else. I just kind of didn't believe in the traditional approach, and you just go to school. And my experience with college was I didn't learn much, so I really didn't believe that it was worth the money anyway. So I just kind of was waiting for that big idea or big opportunity to try something else.
Yeah, I think, my point is, sometimes I get on a little bit of anti-college rant, but it is interesting, the theme. I've interviewed you, Jack, Kyle. I've interviewed a lot of young traders, and it's just there's a theme there of just kind of recognizing that, okay, I'm graduating high school, I need to do something. I should probably go to college, but you pretty soon afterwards, whether it be one semester or 20 semesters later, you kind of recognize that this just isn't it. And I talk about that a lot on this podcast, in that, you were looking for something, you found it, you're passionate about it. And that's something I want a lot of people to focus on, is you got to really want to do this. It's got to kind of very, pique your interest, because if you're just coming to this to make money, your odds of success are probably way lower. But I'm not a college basher, but when you've got that entrepreneurial spirit, it almost makes me, it's almost like when they talk about you look at little kids that go to, elementary school, and they start out all artistic and crazy imaginations, and then that just gets killed in the school system. And I think entrepreneurship is like that with college. I very well, not similar route to you. I mean, I went to college, but I always tell everybody I just went. I didn't, I passed some classes. I dropped a lot of classes. I was always the guy that would, drop right before the deadline, but I don't know, I had a business. I'm doing what I do now, but with trading, I don't know if anything from college was applicable to anything I did in my professional career. So,
no, I agree. I think college really is a great trainer how to be a worker.
Yep.
And I never wanted to be a worker. I was kind of sick of that, and I knew that if I got into that system I'm a pretty loyal guy, so if I got into a job at 23, I would have a hard time quitting or trying to find something I really wanted. And then you add in a wife and kids, and then I could see how 10, 15, 20 years go by without you ever doing anything that you actually are passionate about. And I was just really scared of that potential outcome.
So you did the Google search, you found sites, you found other content out there. So let's move it. So we've got Act 1. So you're Luke Skywalker. You've decided that you want to leave Tatooine. So now you've ventured in to penny stocks. So let me know, what was the beginning like, so let's move into Act 2 here.
So I joined the challenge at the end of 2016, still in school. Didn't place my first trade until January 2017. And I started a little prematurely. I had no true understanding of how much work was truly required to get any kind of footing in this game. I was not even doing it on a daily basis, studying maybe a few hours a week. And then when I jumped into the market, was quickly humbled and learned that, I was going to have to put in so much more time for this to make sense and for this to
when you say humbled, was it big losses, or were you just like confused? You were like, what the hell, because that's, it's easy to press a buy and sell button, but it's kind of hard to be like, okay, what just happened, or why did I click the buy or sell button?
No, I wasn't clicking the buy or sell button for the right reasons, but it was the little things that I was shocked about, like misusing the platform, buying when I'm trying to sell, little things that aren't even, things that you study, just how hard just the basics are.
The mechanics of it.
And then the disconnect between like watching video lessons, watching DVDs, and then what it actually looks like in real time and how much quicker things happen. I remember being at the market open for those first few weeks and months and just your heart going nuts the second 9:30 rings, because there's just action everywhere. And when you have no focus and you don't know your niche and what you're good at, you just see a million things moving. It's really overwhelming at first.
One side note I'd like to make, I have so you've got a trading office, which I think is really cool. We'll probably talk about it later. I caught your buddy's name, but I didn't remember it. If you're watching on YouTube, I love it because I could tell this guy actually knows what he's doing, because we're about 15 minutes in this podcast and all he's done is stare at like two charts and hasn't even touched the keyboard or mouse. I love it. I talked about this at the conference this weekend. So many new traders think trading is like, it's like the movies where the guy's typing 500 words a minute and clicking everywhere. It's not. Real trading, I hate to break it to you, dear listener, real trading is staring at the same stupid chart for like 6 hours a day, waiting for it to do what you want it to do. So anyway, go back to what you were saying.
What was I saying?
You were looking at all the crazy action at the market open. You didn't know what you didn't know. So.
Yep. No. And then it was around that same time I had some health issues and they required me to leave school and graduate from home. And that was like the last little kick for me, because I'd already knew that I had to kind of make this thing work by the end of summer that year, because I was going to be graduating, and then it was kind of like this or a real job. And I know that if it came to that situation, I know I already wasn't profitable at that point. The truth, I wasn't actually profitable at that point, so I would have had to probably get a normal job. But because of my health situation, I couldn't go get a normal job. So it gave me that extra time to figure this out, but it also gave me that extra time to actually say, you know what, I have the time now. I need to commit to this. It was really the only other thing I could do, because school was really easy to finish from home. So I just made the decision that I was going to start putting in the necessary hours. And I don't know if that ever happened. If that didn't happen, if I would have put those hours in, because I had full days where I could, for months and months, it was all day, every day.
Interesting. So that, to the listener out there that may or may not know our friend Tim Sykes' story, which was Dom's first mentor. Tim has a similar story. When he what got him into trading, basically quote unquote full time when he was in high school, was that he was training all day long to be a pro tennis player, then had both his arms worked on, and was like, okay, what am I going to do now? He's stuck at a computer, and I don't even know, I can't fully remember Tim's bio, but I believe he had like no interest in the stock market until he hurt his arms. And here we are, freaking 25, damn near 30 years later, and he's where he is. But it's interesting that you've got that, you made that point that maybe you'd still be half-assing it, for lack of a better term, if it wasn't for being stuck in a bed or whatever. So,
yep. Nope. And yeah, that's how it was. So I did start to put in the time. And I was just struggling for the first 10 months, kind of everywhere, trading everything.
Which everybody does. I mean, we've all, that's what we try and do with the podcast is maybe, shortcut or just even, I think a lot of the times, sometimes I'm just trying to rah people because, I mean, if you're 10 months in and you're like, and nothing is working, it's just a lot of the time it's just part of the process. I mean, I hate to tell you that, dear listener, but it's just kind of the way it goes.
No, and that's, I mean, for that listener, I mean, you can't really look at any one person's time frame and how long it takes them. I mean, it took me 10 months, and that was probably putting in more time than most people. 12, 15, 17 hours a day for months and months and months. And people who are working a full-time job trading 1 or 3 days a week are wondering why they haven't figured it out in 10 months. I mean, that's realistic. You should have realistic expectations for yourself. No, I did think I'd get it sooner, so it was a little disheartening that it took so long. But
which everybody says, again, I mean, if you learn it in 3 years, you want it to be 1.5. If you're profitable in a year, you want it to be 6 months. If you're an outlier and you're profitable in 6 months, I thought I could do it in 3. I mean, everybody says the same thing. So,
no, yeah. All that matters is that you get it and that you keep putting in the time, because when it does come and when things do turn, it usually is pretty quickly, and then you wonder how you ever struggled or how it was ever so hard. You just got to get to that inflection point.
So now you've had that injury, you've graduated. So you did get your degree and everything then?
Yep.
You graduated? Okay, cool. Is it right there? Are you using it as a mouse pad?
No, I don't even know where it is.
I was waiting for you to ping up. I was hoping you were using it as a mouse pad. I kind of like that idea, actually.
No, I cared so little I didn't even attend my graduation.
So now you're feeling better. You graduated. So catch us up on the timeline. Where are we at in time, and where are we at in trading here? So
now we're back then the 10 months after the 10 months. So after that 10 months, I'd started to figure out kind of more of a direction. I'd found some patterns that were working for me, and they were mostly in the OTC world. And at that point during 2017, there was a couple hot sectors. Bitcoin was running for a little bit, and marijuana ran for a little bit. And I missed both of those sectors while I was learning. I mean, I was watching everyone else make money and wondering how I wasn't figuring it out. Those were really preparing me for what would be my turnaround, because in September of 2017 is when a big marijuana boom hit again in that fall. And I was actually prepared at that time for it. And I started to find strategies that worked for my account size. I was under PDT, swinging stuff a lot overnight, looking to just kind of rack up, $500 overnight over and over and over again, which was working tremendously at that time. And just sticking to the patterns that were making sense to me. Once I figured out that OTCs was where I kind of was having some success, I cut out everything listed. I cut out all the shorts. And I watched how much easier it is to make money when you're not giving it away in 10 other places.
Sure.
So I had some consistency. That whole sector I traded really well, got myself over PDT, and then positioned myself to continually improve my education, my experience throughout 2018. Had a pretty good year, trading pretty much just OTCs, trying to keep my focus. And then this year I had a great start to the year, trading my sectors, my OTCs, and then kind of got away from that in March of this year, and have had some growing pains and some more experiences I had to go through from getting away from my sector and away from my niche, and things that I had to go through that are part of the journey. And I know it's kind of a sore spot, but I think again, we talk the mistakes everybody makes, and I know I joked about the
hero's journey, the Joseph Campbell Star Wars thing, but there's always that act one, and then he sets off on adventure, and then there's the injury, or Darth Vader cuts off your hand or whatever, So now we've gone into the darkness. The hero goes out into the darkness. So talk about that. What was the dark period? What do you think was the cause? How did you get yourself out of it? So,
well, I think it was like I just talked about when I became profitable, and then most of 2018, I was hungry. I was on the come up. Like I really wanted to make this work. So I was a lot more disciplined. I was patient for my setups. I tacked when it was aggressive when I needed to be. And I stayed away from all the things that, I knew that I wasn't great at. And I think this year, once I had, I was like 2 years in, more experience, more money to sit on, more capital in my accounts, I think I got a little complacent. And also in February, I had my best month ever. So I think I got a little bit too much of a confidence booster.
Yep.
Then things started to slow down in my niche, and I started going after things that I normally wouldn't have. Like in 2018, it was pretty much the same cycle. It started the year hot, and then it got slow, but I was consistently profitable throughout 2018. A lot smaller during those summer months, but was still making the trades that were there when they were there, and then leaving the market when it slowed down. And this year it was like I was like set on staying here all day, every day. At the market around 7, leaving at like 4 or 5, like working longer than the 9-to-5 guy that I was trying to not become. And it just led to a lot of mistakes. I was oversizing on non-niche setups. Then because of the losses I was taking in my non-niche setups, I was not playing or screwing up my niche setups. I took a few losses that are way bigger than I would have ever wanted to take, playing things that are way outside my niche. Just a lot of mistakes that were compounding, killing my confidence, and really just killing my groove. And it took months to get myself centered and reorganized, and getting back to discipline and the patience that got me to where I am.
It's actually two great points there that I want to touch on. Number one, that sitting there all day long, man. Been there, done that more. One of the reasons I have so many freaking hobbies and I do so much stuff like around the house, I love having an excuse. Like today pretty crappy. I'm more of a NASDAQ guy. There's nothing out there today. I was so happy when I'm like, hey, we got a podcast today. I had some stuff to do out, on a project in one of the buildings. It's like, I was glad, because it's amazing how bad it can get when you start, fishing, for lack of a better term. When you're like, okay, this is my process. There's nothing here, but, you're here. You're like, well, I got up early and, I'm here. The market's open. There's got to be something to trade, and those never work. Almost never. Sometimes you get lucky. And then the second part that always blows me away, and again, been there, done that, when you do get outside that, it's weird how you've got your core set up and you'll like follow it to a T, especially like with the stop. And it's weird how like once you do something outside your niche, it always seems like those are the ones you let get away from you.
Yep.
Cause it's just like, I know you're a NASDAQ guy. So say you're in or an OTC guy. Say you're in a NASDAQ and you'll be like, oh, it'll bounce into the afternoon. You start justifying, and those, it seems like those are always the ones that get worse,
No, it was like, okay, so I'll try this new setup that I want to learn. While my niche is slow, I'll just start learning this listed long pre-market strategy or something, or revert split setup or something. It's like, I'll just use 200 to 500 shares. We'll start small. I'll risk like $50. We're just learning. I know I'm not going to make money. And then all of a sudden I got 5,000 shares. And it's like, I don't even know how it got there. It's just like, because you don't know what to expect, you don't know how to plan for it. Your plan isn't going to be correct because you're just starting in it. I don't know. That's what happened all summer, and I've had to really adjust my rules. And right now I'm not even trading in the morning.
Beautiful.
Because I found out, it's funny, I made that presentation for Orlando. And after I was finished with it, I was like, wow, I have some really good advice. I wish I could follow it. So I started making rules based on what I was telling other people to do. And I've had a couple good weeks of back to the way I started. Really small losses, great risk reward on my wins, and just sitting and waiting. And I was finding out that all summer I was losing a bunch of money in the morning, trying all these new setups, and then having to make it back in the afternoon on my niche setups. And I was like, wow, if I had just not even shown up for the morning, I'd have all these profits from the afternoon. So I've just cut out the morning trading. I'm still here. I look in case there's stuff I've been stalking. There's a couple things I'm allowed to play. We have a taser in the office right now, and if you break your rules, you get tased.
Make sure you record that. I will pay for that footage. So.
Haven't had to do it yet, but no, it's just, and now I feel like I'm in control of my trading, which is how I felt for years until this summer, where I felt like I was all over the place, like I was at the will of the market, and like I was just getting tossed around on roller coaster rides. And so I just want to get back to that, small losses, decent to big wins, and then every now and then a perfect setup will emerge and I'll make a big gain on it, and just not losing all that money little by little everywhere else.
And a couple interesting points there. I kind of like the fact, number one, I did miss your presentation at the conference. I think I was interviewing maybe either Jack again or maybe it might have been Roland Wolf, but I did get a lot of good comments on your presentation. So nice job. And then number two, it's interesting to me that point you made, like, as you're building your presentation, doing your slide deck, it like dawned on you that, hey, these are mistakes that I'm making. And that just goes back to that point I hammer all the time of going, people say, oh yeah, I write a journal. Oh yeah, I review my journal. And sometimes I'm like, well, are you really? And that's a great point to them. I mean, Dom was, he's got to build a slide deck. He's got to get ready to present for 45 minutes. So he actually looked at the data, actually reviewed things, and was like, well, geez, I need to stay away from this. I need to stay away from that. So it's an interesting tip, and doesn't surprise me that you found something out of that. So.
No, for sure. And it's like, because I kept telling people, like, go over your stats once a month. You need to get information and follow your information. And I was like, well, I kind of gotten away from that. I'd stopped, paying attention to what I was doing. I kind of just thought I was conscious of all the mistakes I was making, when in reality they were on a deeper level than that, and that if I had just gone through and looked at the data, the answers were staring me right back in the face. And I was, too emotional, too stubborn to change.
And I think that's I'm gonna butcher the quote, but there's a quote about, if you really want to learn something, teach it. If you're, again, there's a quote out there. I can't remember it, but it's like, you had to present in front of like 500 plus people. So you put in the time, and so I think it's a great technique, even if you're, if you're teaching, if you're out there listening, you're trying to teach your kids or your buddies or something. I mean, it's interesting because, you're going to approach it differently if you've now got to verbalize this to someone else. So it's an interesting tip there. So,
yeah.
So last kind of question, we'll kind of head home. Something we talk about on the podcast constantly, people probably get sick of hearing me say it, is focusing on that one setup, that one style, that one setup, which you obviously have reinforced. But the biggest question I get as a follow-up to that is, well, how do I do that? Okay. So, and I don't expect you to answer that. Obviously, you can't answer that for everybody. I think last time I checked, there's 7.9 billion people that listen to the podcast. We're just working on that last 500,000, and then it'll be the whole world. But you can't answer for everybody. But how did you decide, which again, I love the name, the OTC swizzle or whatever, or focus on OTCs, walk me through, how did you discover that?
Well, I think the first time before this most recent switch back to my rules was I kind of got sick of losing, and I got sick of, how to word this. You get to that point where it's like, trading's fun and everything, but it's more fun to make money. And even though trading less isn't as much fun, you're going to be a lot happier, healthier, and make more money in the process. So I think when you have the numbers in front of you that show you that you're not good at something, it should be pretty obvious and easy to just cut that out completely. But it's not always so easy. I was talking to someone at the conference who had been trading multiple years, the same setups, and had never had a green month. And I was just wondering how you could trade that long with the same setups and still lose without switching. It's like, I don't know if it's like just stubbornness or conviction in those setups, but you have to be willing to change. Like you know the solution. It's like, it's not simple. It's easy. It's not simple, or one of those, whatever. Follow what your numbers are telling you to do, because you're going to be more profitable. You might trade, 50% as much as you are right now, but you'll probably make 50% or 100% more than what you're making right now. And this summer, I wanted to become the jack of all trades, be able to trade long listed, short listed, OTCs. And unless you have 15, 20 years experience, I think that's really difficult to do in your first few years of trading. So I think the best thing to do is just grow your account through things that you've been proven to succeed at and be consistently profitable at. And even if it does get boring at times, I don't know if that's what it was for me, but maybe I was just sick of the process and sticking to my rules and being patient. But doing that is just so much more better for your long run.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, it's funny. One of the, I was talking about it in a StocksToTrade Pro webinar today. I'm like, for some of the people that weren't at the conference, I'm like, if I had to summarize the conference for you in one sentence for all these guys, Michael Good, Mark Crook, Roland Wolf, Huddy, you, Jack, it's like if I had to pick one theme from the conference is less is more, and to the new trader, that is it's like, I don't know, it's like throwing acid on them. It's like they don't want anything to do with it, but that is, it's just, you get back to that point, like you said, you're not trading mornings. You're only trading your setup, and now it's less stressful. You're getting better results, and you're actually, you're now a trader, not just a gambler throwing stuff at the wall.
Well, it's like you always say how part-time trading is like the answer. And I came upon the conclusion that maybe part-time trading is the most profitable trading. Even though I'm a full-time trader, if I treat it as a part-time thing, only trading from 1 to 4. If I make more money, then that's why push the envelope and have to be there the whole day or have to do all those other setups. And I don't know if it was, I think, I'm not a worthy trader because I can only trade these 1 or 2 patterns.
Right.
I mean, the 90-some% of people can't even find those 1 or 2 patterns that work for them. So you might as well just milk what you got for all that it's worth.
Yep. Well said. Well said. So, again, thanks a lot, Dom. How many, just real quick, how many guys you got in the office now?
Just 2. Jack's upstairs now in his room.
Okay.
One of them's not here,
but there's 4 of you guys that work together.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So that's something, I want to throw out there before we wrap up. I mean, I think, especially if you're young and you're new, man, I like to think if I was, in your guys', obviously I got a family, but I think it's awesome to find somebody that's like-minded. That was a big part of what I talked about at the conference as well. And the beauty of it is if you've got those trading buddies, you've got the taser, baby, so if it happens, probably kind of hard to tase yourself. I guess you could do it, but you'd have to be pretty bold. But
yeah, no, what it does is it's good for accountability. When you're starting off and you're sitting, alone in your house, it's really easy to make dumb decisions, go against your plan. There's no one watching you. It's you versus you. But when you have this accountability, you have these rules. We all have our separate rules and we're all following them now. And, you have to admit when you broke rules or if you're planning on breaking rules and it's good just to be just talking about trading all day long. Like you said, teaching there's levels to all this. He can help him and I can teach him. And when you're constantly, talking about it and giving advice and, taking advice, you're just absorbing so much all the time that it really can help you excel a lot quicker.
Cool. Well, I tell you what, Dom, thanks a lot. Again, I appreciate you coming on the podcast and a lot of great stuff here. And I always say, man, I'm jealous. I didn't find day trading until I was, 15 years older than you. So it's a great, it's one of those things where it's really hard. There's ups and downs, and it is nice to be able to be starting when you don't have, when I started, hey, I had 2 babies, I had a mortgage. It was intimidating. And so if you're out there, and listening to this and you want to get started, one of my favorite sayings is the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago And the second best time is today, so get started today. So thanks a lot, Dom.
Thanks for having me.
That concludes this episode of the Steady Trade Podcast. And as usual, if you have any questions, concerns, or recommendations for us, please check us out at SteadyTrade.com, where we actually post transcripts of the episode and recap blog posts of the episode. It's a great resource if you're looking to expand your trading and get a more immersive experience from the Steady Trade Podcast.